to Waterloo Schools Live. I'm Sharon Miller, and our guest today is Superintendent Gary Norris. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you, Sharon. It's great to be here as always, and a big shout out to T back at the district office.
She's listening to us, I think.
I hope so.
And we would want to wish all of our listeners a Happy New Year. This is our first show of 2013, and we hope that you're able to join us every second and fourth Thursday. We're on the air at 10:30 and in the morning and 7:30 at night. So today we've got several topics that have been on people's minds all across our country that have to do with safety of our children in school. And we've been always keeping that a priority in the Waterloo Schools. And it was evident that there had been quite a lot of safety planning in the school that this recent tragedy occurred in Sandy Hook Elementary.
They really were. Now and we're going to learn more about that tragedy in Connecticut over the next year or so. But the early reports are that they had a very good crisis plan. They went into lockdown and they followed their procedures, and we now know that that saved some lives. We don't know, there's no way of knowing how many, but the fact that they worked to make it difficult for this crazed shooter said a lot for the district. And so all of us now, in parents and schools and school officials across the land, are asking ourselves what can be done to keep our children even safer.
We do have a comprehensive crisis plan in our schools. We've had for some time. We always are working to make it better, to learn what we can that will make us safer for kids and for our employees. The security of a child is always our highest priority.
It really is, Sharon. There is no greater task. The word many of us, or the phrase that we've all used since we've been children, in loco parentis, means that we take that role extremely seriously. The school buildings today are built with safety in mind. They are not bunkers. We don't want to operate a school like a concrete bunker, a storm shelter. But on the other hand, schools are designed and operated to be very safe places. They are actually good places for your children to be in an emergency, and especially since our staff has been through quite a bit of very detailed training on what to do.
And we're reviewing with our staff this week and the coming weeks. We're reviewing some of those important procedures. But one thing we want to talk today about is what our parents and others who care for kids in our schools, who are involved with them in one way or the other, how they can help us keep our kids safe. And you know, one of those safety assets or services that we have is the ability to contact our parents very quickly using ConnectEd, our parents and guardians. And that system has a lot of capabilities.
The internet has opened up a lot of different technology to us, and so we're able to get a phone call to parents within seconds. And especially if we use the emergency side of that process, we call everyone's cell phones, their work phones and everything, and we can get messages. There's probably no faster way of communicating, because not everybody has KWWL turned on. Not everybody is online looking at the Waterloo Cedar Falls Courier's website. And so, you know, we're, like you just said, we're better able to communicate now than at any time in the past.
And we have in the past few years sent out phone calls, as you said, it is through a rapid calling system. ConnectEd also can send an email if we have your correct email. So it's so important to keep that email first of all, on file with the school, and if it changes, be sure and let us know, phone number and email address. And then the third way of communicating that is becoming more and more popular is texting. We will soon have the capability to text parents. We will first send out a kind of an invitation to join our texting capabilities. And if you decline that, if a parent or guardian declines that, we will not send you a text. Some people prefer not to receive text, but we'll give you that option. But if you're okay with it, then we're going to add texting to that phone call and the email communication. So that's coming soon. I'd encourage our parents and guardians to watch for that.
And is the best way, Sharon, for them to do that to give us information on our Infinite Campus parent portal, or are there other ways?
You know, that one way you can do it, and that gives you as a parent or guardian many capabilities, is to register with for your Infinite Campus account. And you, right in that account, you can put your email. The other way to do it is to be sure that your school secretary has your email address or addresses on file, and they can enter it into the student's Infinite Campus record. So there's two ways to go about that. Really urge parents to open up their own account, but we can do it the other way.
And maybe sometime we'll tell parents, not today, but tell parents about all the things they can learn on Infinite Campus, our parent portal, grades, attendance, just all kinds of things. So we can maybe do that at another program.
I think that'd be a great program, because that is just growing and growing as a communication tool from not only from the school but from the classroom teacher as well. Now, communication, you mentioned the mass media. We're always going to be sharing information with the mass media, and they help us get instructions out to parents about what's happening, what we would ask them to do. And one thing we always ask of parents is not to rush to the school. That's maybe the first inclination. That's our first tendency to want to get there and protect our child, to call or come to the school. What would be some good advice in that realm?
Well, as you just said, we all have these tendencies built into us, and if we think there's something harmful going on to our children, it's our instinct to go protect them. As it turns out, the very worst thing a parent can do in a crisis situation is rush to the school. If you rush into the parking lot, you're probably blocking the way of an emergency vehicle. If there is, God forbid, a shooting situation, you could put yourself or other people in harm's way. Just have faith that law enforcement and school officials know what we're doing, and do not, no matter how much your inner desire tells you to do it, don't rush the school. Now, it doesn't mean you can't call the school, doesn't mean you shouldn't turn on the TV or radio or expect a call from us. Do all of those things, but just wait to come up to the school, because we don't want to block emergency vehicles from getting to the schools.
You know, the experience in other school disasters has been, because so many people have cell phones, and so many people might be trying to call the school, for example, that neither one of those systems may be functioning right. Those communications can get overwhelmed, and if you can be patient, watch the mass media, wait for communications from us, we're going to be communicating as fast and as fully as we can out to you.
Well, let's be graphic for a second, Sharon. Let's go to Sandy Hook, and let's say that here's kids hunkered down in classrooms, and they know there's a gunman in the building. And again, all of this, we're just trying to educate you, parents. We're not trying to alarm you, but let's just say there's a guy or a gal walking up and down the hallway with a gun trying to figure out which locked door they're going to, because our doors are going to be locked, we're going to be in lockdown, which door they're going to break into and look for people. If you're calling your child and your child's cell phone is ringing in that classroom, you're putting your own child at harm's way, as much as I hate to say it. So we ask all of the teachers to have all of the kids either turn their cell phones off or put them on silence, so that we don't draw attention to that classroom. We turn off the lights in that classroom. We hide as near as we can hide. You remember teachers in Sandy Hook putting their children in closets and things like that. So please restrain also. Now, if your child calls you, that's a different story. We're not gonna prevent children from, especially if the teacher feels it's safe. But again, if that person that wants to do harm to our children is in the building, they're walking up and down the hall, any noise, any talking, any laughing, any ringing of phones may distract and may cause harm on our kids.
You know, that brings up a good point about kids taking the drills seriously. We have very good cooperation at elementary school. You know, kids are for everything. You know, kids pretty much follow what the teacher asks them to do. It gets trickier at middle school and high school, but it would be a good thing if parents and others who care about young people could encourage them to take our drills very seriously, to treat them as though they could be a real danger situation, so that when, and heaven forbid that there is an actual dangerous situation, they've practiced what they need to do for their own safety.
Absolutely, and as we go through our various trainings this month with teachers, they'll be passing on some information to students, and it would not be bad. In fact, we would ask parents to do this. Ask your child what they're supposed to do if the room goes into lockdown. Make sure that they know it's to protect them, or if we're asked to evacuate and go to our alternate site, which we do occasionally, what's the reason for that? Why would we be taking you to that other building? Maybe it might be a church or a community center or things like that. But it would be great if you parents and grandparents would ask children, what are you supposed to do in a crisis?
And you know, the other piece that has shown to be so important in emergencies at schools is getting parents and kids reunited. As we mentioned earlier, that our first instinct is to want to know our child is safe, to actually see them, to put our arms around them. And one of the things that can be so important, and we practice it, we have procedures in place, is that we have an orderly way of reuniting kids with their parents. Or, in some cases, it's another person that the parent has approved in advance as an emergency contact. And you know, sometimes it's easy to forget what I wrote on that emergency contact list at the first of the school year. And it might be Aunt Sarah and her phone number, and maybe Aunt Sarah has moved out of state now, and so Aunt Carolyn or or Uncle Frank would be the person who's going to come and pick up a child if I can't. If that name's not on that emergency contact card, we can't release the child to that person.
Yeah, and a perfect example would be if you have a neighbor or a friend that you carpool with, and you send just someone up, hey, can you go pick up my kid today? Not at a time of crisis. We are going to usually have a reunion center, and that's going to be the place where kids and parents will be reunited after whatever event there is. And it's done very orderly and very, it takes a while, frankly. There were some parents on TV as they were doing the Sandy Hook reunion, you know, that took hours and hours and hours to get the building evacuated, to make sure everyone was safe and to walk those kids over to the reunion center.
You know, one of the things that happens almost every spring is that we have tornado warnings in this area.
Do we have tornadoes in Iowa?
In Iowa, you know. Unfortunately, we've had some awful ones.
Absolutely.
But the late afternoon is a common time for tornado weather, tornado kinds of weather. And so sometimes we have shelter in place, not just a drill, but a real shelter in place, going to the safest tornado shelter in the building. And we hold kids there until that tornado warning has passed. And we ask parents not to try to come to the school and take their child out of that shelter. They're probably in the safest place they can be.
Absolutely, Sharon. The worst place you could be is in your car in the middle of a storm picking up your child. Our buildings are designed much stronger than most residences. They're made with steel and concrete, and they're going to be standing when many houses are torn down. They're also going to be standing when cars are blown away by a tornado. And yeah, I don't want to make fun of tornadoes at all. I grew up in a state where Kansas, where there's massive tornadoes, but yeah, we do have every now and then. Sometimes tornadoes happen in evening time, but as you said, late afternoon when thunderstorms are building. And so we will send your children into an inner hallway where they're very safe. We'll have them protect their heads and cover themselves, and your child will be safe in that building. And so please, again, don't rush the school.
And we practice these drills with our kids. We 4 fire drills, 4 tornado or shelter-in-place drills, 2 lockdown drills, an evacuation of the alternate site. We do that every year. We move the entire school to their alternate shelter, their alternate site. So we think it's important not only for our staff to know, but for our students to know, and our parents and others who care about kids, parents and guardians, grandparents, everyone who has a young person in our school, to know what our plans are and how we're going to take care of our kids and staff.
And I want to, on behalf of the students and parents and staff, I want to thank you for your devotion to crisis management. Many of you don't know that Sharon Miller is, I can't think of the right word, but she cannot rest until she knows that we have all of these procedures down. And I would like to know sometime, Sharon, how many hours of training you've personally been to, but I'm sure it's hundreds of hours, and you've also given hundreds of hours of training. And so we feel fortunate that you've set up this good system.
Well, thank you. You know, I do feel passionately about it, but you know what? We also have many other teams. Every building has a safety team, an incident command team is what we call it, that focuses on the building safety. We have regular trainings, regular meetings to work out problems. So it's a district-wide system of people who work diligently to make sure that we're safe as we can be.
And I think we need to also mention law enforcement and our fire and emergency responders. We meet with them periodically. You've even been on committees with them. They have supervised the building of our crisis plans. They know our buildings. Without going into all of our plans that would not be appropriate on the radio, just please believe us when we say that our school is totally in tune with what the police are going to be doing and what the fire department and emergency responders are going to be doing.
We are partners with them, and we are so fortunate we have highly skilled law enforcement and emergency responders and other emergency planners in our community. They're a terrific partner for us. Now, Gary, you mentioned a little bit about our buildings and just the construction of buildings. You know, we have all of our doors except one main entrance that's secured. We have Raptor. That's a relatively new visitor screening procedure. We appreciate people's cooperation and understanding of Raptor.
You know, it's been suggested that initially when approaching our buildings, it may not feel warm and fuzzy because people have to buzz through the door, they have to be identified, and then once they get inside, we ask them for ID. And then yet when people reflect on what's just happened, I think it's easy for people now to understand why we have schools locked. There's many doors to our buildings. There has to be because of emergency exit from the building, but we keep those doors locked so that intruders cannot bother our children. We have this system where we check people's IDs to make sure they're who they say they are. And we're starting to put fences around the rear of our schools, not like a stockade, but so that kids can't be bothered on the playground.
And you know, that's some of these extraordinary tragedies help us learn what we can do better. You know, they're everyday procedures such as parent drop-off and pickup. Sometimes there's a lot of traffic congestion, and it's easy to be impatient in those situations.
Yeah, our neighborhoods, we're not, where most of our schools are, we're not initially designed to handle 300 or 400 cars in a 15-minute period. Neighborhoods are designed more for traffic that just several cars coming down the street, and so we just need people's cooperation in all of these areas. And schools are very congested at you know, in the 8-ish hour in the morning, maybe earlier, high school later if you're elementary, and then again in the afternoon at 2:30 and 3:30. They're very congested areas, and so I think even that could help someone picture why you don't want to rush the building in an emergency. Just picture that congestion at drop-off or pickup time.
And where we can, within the resources available to us, you know, sometimes we can alter the shape of a drive, add another driveway, or change how the parking is done at a building. So where we can, we always review, but where we can, we make those improvements.
We do, and we're constantly trying it, and if it doesn't work too well, like you said, we're not stuck with a traffic pattern forever. So one of our new schools, Fred Becker, was designed with a lane that has parent queuing, and that means 40 or 50 cars can get in line and can get off the city streets. And so we're constantly trying to make it easier for parents.
Well, we appreciate all the work that's done all the way from facilities through staff training and parent responsibilities and communications. It takes all of us working together to really make this the best it can be. If we have parents or grandparents or others, guardians and others out there who would like to get more involved in your own school's safety planning, we surely encourage that. Contact your principal. We always welcome parents on our site councils, and your ideas, your identification of issues at your school that we should be thinking about, those are just invaluable to us.
You know, the other thing I want to urge parents to help us do and citizens to help us do is to keep a good conversation going on about where our country moves forward next. If anyone comes up to you and says, if they would only do this, and just offers one solution, they might say if they would only arm teachers, or if they would only do gun control, or if they would only stop violent video games, or if they would only control movies, or if they would only fix mental health so that they're screening, we don't have the wrong people buying guns. I firmly believe with every fiber of my being that it's going to take a multifaceted approach. Please, when you're having conversations with people, don't allow them, without thinking more about it, to say, if they would only. You can say if they would only, but you better encourage them to have 6 or 8 things on the list, because for our country and our schools to be safer, there's going to have to be a lot of different things get done. We're not going to, the school district's not going to take a particular political side in this, but I'm going to keep saying to everybody, we may have to do combinations of all of those things.
Well, and we appreciate your leadership and the involvement and commitment of many people in keeping our kids safe. We're going to switch gears here just momentarily. We have just a few minutes left, Gary, and our legislative session is going to consider some real important educational issues this year, as they did last year.
Under the leadership of Governor Branstad and our legislators, they are really taking a look at very weighty issues of how to reform our schools. And reform may be even a misleading word, because we need to be schools that can improve ourselves continuously. But for the listeners out there, as you're finding out more about the legislative sessions, please know that this year will be a great deal of conversation about how we use teachers in a leadership role more in our buildings. And Sharon, you and I were talking about this before, but I think we already do a good job of using teacher leaders in our buildings. We have lead teachers, we have coaches for literacy and math, and we have assistant principals. But we use our teachers in an amazing way, and they're very professional people. So that's going to be a discussion this year. There's going to be a lot of discussions about what training and skills kids need before they graduate. They're even talking about offering a special certification in an area so employers can know that they're certified. And there'll be those things along with a lot of property tax reform issues this year. So it's going to be a busy time.
And we'll continue to talk about them over the coming months with our KBBG shows and in other ways. And we invite parents and community members who feel passionately about education to join us. We're wanting to make sure that supports are in place at the state level as much as possible for many of the reforms we have already started locally, but that can help us carry those even farther.
It is important that we constantly improve the education of our children. Our world is changing so quickly, and schools need to speed up the pace at which we're changing ourselves as well.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Superintendent Gary Norris, and I want to thank our audience. We're rebroadcast tonight at 7:30, and we'll be back on the 4th Thursday of the month. Thanks for joining us.